Hello, and welcome to another episode of Social Workers Rise. It is your host, Catherine, here. If you don't know who I am Catherine Moore, the host of the Social Workers Rise podcast, where we talk about all things social work from micro to macro and everything in between. I'm very excited to have our guest here, Charisse Nance. You are in for a treat, my friend, because she is a seasoned licensed clinical social worker, a trauma specialist, an award-winning author, global speaker, and entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience. She co-founded Hand in Hand Counseling Services to address mental health disparities in Black communities and systematic pay gaps in the field. Known as the, quote, compassion fatigue lady, Charisse is a pioneer in combating compassion fatigue and leadership in Western Pennsylvania, and maybe after this episode, nationwide, international. Through her company, Vitamin C Healing, she helps organizations create trauma-informed, supportive work cultures. She's delivered keynotes and workshops for organizations such as NAMI, UPMC Health Plan, and the Missouri Health Association. Charisse also founded the SWAG Awards to honor social workers in Greater Pittsburgh. In her free time, she enjoys running, traveling, reading, and exploring new foods with her husband. Welcome to the podcast, Charisse.
Thanks, Catherine. I love hearing my bio. I'm like, wow, is that really me?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we got to be reminded, like, who the heck we are.
Yes, we do. We absolutely do.
So tell us in your own words, who are you and what do you do? Like, what's your primary focus right now for your career?
Yeah. So just starting out with who I am, because I think we focus a lot on titles. I can run down my titles and everything I've done in my career, which I love to talk about. But I was really reflecting on that question. I am someone who actually, I love to rest. I love to just be and not have any commitments and binge watch my favorite shows and eat my favorite snacks and just mindlessly just be mindless and not have to worry about anything. I do enjoy running. I'm someone who is loyal. I'm someone who likes to have fun. I'm someone who likes to laugh. I enjoy deep conversations. I love road trips. And I just love learning about people. It's hard to turn off the social worker and therapist hat, even when I try to. I feel like I'm always in the moment. I'm always kind of on, but I don't feel burned out by it, if that makes sense. Even when I'm watching movies, I'm like, oh, well, what about that service? And have they looked at it through this lens? So I'm just someone who enjoys life. I believe life is for living. After these past 5 years, with everything that we've been through and continue to go through, life is for living. So that's who I am at the core. Now, what I do a lot of things, and I do make sure I find time for that rest that I enjoy, and I make sure I get my sleep in too. But I am a social worker and a therapist by trade, and I've been in this field for, I can't believe it's been over 25 years. I've been doing this since I was in college in the late 90s, and I've just always been curious about the human mind. I've worked at a lot of community mental health organizations, nonprofits, educational institutions, hospital settings. I've done this work in so many different facets. And even though I did this work in so many different facets, there was just so much all of the issues remain the same. The systematic challenges and all of the barriers and the pay gaps that we experience as social workers. I've worked alongside nurses who were great, and we were both great at what we did. Both of our work was meaningful and important. They were focusing on the medication aspect, and we were focusing on like the mental health assessments and psychosocial stressors. But the pay gap was enormous. It was at least a $20,000 pay gap, and that is significant. We have to have master's degrees. Well, in that role, we had to be licensed, so we have to have a master's and a license, and a lot of them had bachelor's degrees. Some of them don't even have bachelor's degree. They have certificates. So as I'm seeing that, I'm like, we got to do something about that. And just all the disparities. I have a business partner at Hand in Hand Counseling. She and I decided to open up a mental health private practice, and we'll celebrate 12 years this year. We've been around for quite a while. We have a group practice with other.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been quite a journey. A lot of challenges, a lot of triumphs, a lot of lessons, and most importantly, a lot of people impacted, both therapists. We're developing therapists there because we have a lot of provisionally licensed therapists, LSWs, who are seeking to become fully credentialed. So we get excited about developing them. And then the community, the people who are impacted by our work. And that truly warms my heart. And I also have another company, Vitamin C Healing. I'm not selling vitamins. That is one of the first questions that I'm asked. My husband actually came up with that name based on my very first book that I wrote, Vitamin C Healing for the Mind, Body, and Soul. And we wanted something to just capture the feeling that people would experience when they actually experience me, my services, just like the nutrient vitamin C. You'll feel whole, you'll feel healed, you'll feel fulfilled. And there's a focus on those helping professionals and leaders who are at risk for compassion fatigue and burnout. And then from that came the SWAG Awards because of the pay gap with social workers and a lot of other professions, the lack of appreciation, the lack of really respect, if we're being totally honest. And I know trying to fight for pay equity, that would take quite some time. And we know that would be an ongoing battle. Like there's just so many layers when it comes to that. So I'm like, what can we do to show our appreciation as social workers? And like, there's a lot of award ceremonies. I don't see many social workers getting recognized for their work. And my husband's like, well, what do you want to do about that? I'm like, I want a platform. And I'm like, maybe some type of, I don't know, recognition or award ceremony. And he came up with the acronym SWAG, Social Worker Appreciation of Greatness. I'm like, I love that. And we created that like right before the pandemic. We were excited. We're having it in March, National Social Work Month. We're gaining all this momentum. Everybody's excited. And then like 2 weeks before the ceremony, everything gets shut down. I'm like,
Oh,
oh no. But fortunately we were able to continue to have it. But yeah, it's been quite a journey.
yes. Oh my gosh. That's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. And as you were talking, I'm thinking, wow, you've done a lot of different types of social work in all these different areas.
Yeah.
And today we're focusing on compassion fatigue. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
compassion fatigue feels like one of those hazards of the job. Like,
Yes.
you work in, for example, the medical setting, and it's almost just kind of a byproduct that we have to learn the hard way a lot of times. And I'm hoping that our conversation today can help prevent someone from learning the hard way, or at
Yeah.
least
Yeah.
give them an increased awareness of what to look out for, because it's real. It happens. Even though you
Yeah.
might be just starting your career and you love your clients, that doesn't make you immune from experiencing compassion fatigue.
Absolutely. And that word you use, Catherine, immune, I think of it as the common cold of helping professionals, because if you do this work, you are prone to it. It's a reality, but it doesn't have to be your reality. We don't have to look at it through the lens of doom and zoom. And for those who may not know what compassion fatigue is, because I don't want to assume everybody knows what it is, it's the physical and emotional exhaustion that causes us to have it impacts our ability to empathize with the people that we serve, our colleagues, and even our loved ones, often referred to as the cost of caring. And when thinking about compassion fatigue, it is where you get exhausted from empathy. And oftentimes people are like, well, is there a difference between compassion fatigue and burnout? And can you experience both? Unfortunately, yes, you can experience both. They're like first cousins. When you think about compassion fatigue, it's exhaustion from empathizing, and burnout is that exhaustion from excessive workloads. It's more systemic, like a loss of passion or clarities or value conflicts. And so sometimes they go hand in hand. With compassion fatigue, I think the most important thing is to create a foundation of self awareness and self compassion. It really starts with that awareness. Most of us are so busy that we don't even notice the signs. We are just mindlessly moving throughout our day, task to task, session to session, appointment to appointment, without even taking a breath. When when I facilitate these workshops, and I usually start with a body scan, a grounding activity to just bring the temperature down, because people are usually, they're coming in hot, they're tense, they're like, I don't have time for this, I don't have an hour, I'm busy. And they don't even have to say it. I can read their body language. And when I'm leading them through this, some people are able to relax, and some people are like fidgeting. They're just having a really hard time, and the reason is because our nervous systems are dysregulated. You're just constantly active. You're constantly in survival in that reactive part of your brain. And now I'm asking you to be still for 2 minutes in the middle of your workday. You feel like it's wrong. Why is she asking me to do this? I have clients that need to see me. Somebody's in clients. I got in crisis. I got progress notes to do, and she's asking me to be still. Is she out of her mind? Is she really a social worker? I don't believe her. Um, but, and when I'm able to name that for them, people are disarmed. They're like, that's exactly what I'm feeling. And we got to, and that's why I say that foundation of self awareness and self compassion, because we got to give ourselves grace. You didn't get here overnight, so we're not going to undo this overnight. So just having that awareness of what's happening in your body, that headache that you're getting at the end of the day at 4 o'clock p.m., that is not normal. That's not healthy. That can be a sign, the physical part of it, the body aches, the gastrointestinal symptoms, the physical fatigue, the tension. Obviously, you want to see a doctor first, but those are signs, understanding the type of work you do, that something is wrong. You're constantly on edge. Nobody can say anything to you or ask you a question, because you're just always bothered. People feel like they're bothering you. They walk on eggshells around you. You're constantly having emotional outbursts. I remember myself crying in a car, in between sessions, because I was just so exhausted. I needed a release. I
Yep.
remember having extreme anxiety in the morning before our morning meetings. And it's just not normal, but those are some of the common, more frequent signs that we see.
Right. And I love that you gave some examples and kind of broke it down, because I've also experienced compassion fatigue too in my work, where
Yeah.
I find myself just going, like you said, going through the motions. And it's like, all right, here's
Mhm.
another client who's struggling with depression. All right, blah, blah, blah. And instead of really recognizing the humanness of the person in front of us, or a lot of times, to be honest, it's the chart that we're looking at. And we're like, all right,
Yep.
checklist, checklist, checklist. And when you lose that, that's everything, because our entire
Yes.
role and job and purpose of our career is to connect with people on an empathetic level, to help people, like
Absolutely.
to help people. And when you lose that,
Mhm.
you're losing the whole purpose.
Yep. You're losing the spirit of it. And it's important, and I think and I'm glad you brought that up, Catherine, because I think a lot of us, a lot of people in this field are like, oh, well, that's just the occupational hazard. That's just, that's the name of the game. It just comes with the territory. And while it may be common, it's not normal. It's not healthy for us. We're in zombie mode. We're in autopilot when we're feeling that way, when we are desensitized, when we can't even feel anymore, or we just don't care. When we're just so disconnected from the work, we've withdrawn. We're in what they call zombie phase, because we're exhausted. We're in compassion fatigue, and there are so many of us who are walking around on empty, but we still continue to show up and go to work because you got to pay your bills. what else are you going to do? That's all you know. You've been doing it all your life, so you just continue to operate in that way.
I'm wondering for you, did you have a moment where you realized, oh, this is compassion fatigue?
So when I was in, I think it was graduate school, and when you're a social worker in graduate school, you got to do two internships. And so I was doing one of my internships, and I was working full time, and I was taking classes. And my first internship, it was rough. I learned a lot from it, but it was rough. It was very taxing. I was still, pretty green. So it was just like, oh, running these groups. A lot was being asked of us as interns. There wasn't a lot of guidance. So I was pushing myself, but I was also kind of timid and nervous about that. And then I'm going to my full-time job because I got to work full-time. And then I'm trying to go to class. And by the time we get home, it's like 9:30 at night, and I'm just exhausted. I'm like, okay, maybe I just need more sleep. I'm not sleeping enough. I'm getting home at 9:30, and by the time I get to bed, it's like almost 12, and then I'm getting up 5 a.m. to do it all over again. It's clear that I'm probably tired. So let me take a couple of days off and rest. So I did that, and I would rest, but something just still didn't feel right. Like I still felt this emotional exhaustion. And then I was questioning, do I want to do this work? Like is this sustainable? Like this feels like misery. Is this what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, to just build a family and make a living? And there wasn't a name for it. Back then, nobody was talking about compassion fatigue, or even burnout, or even taking care of yourselves. The message that we got was to make sure we left our bags at the door and prioritize the client. And so I remember a couple years after I graduated, going to a training on trauma. The trainer started talking about secondary trauma and compassion fatigue. I'm like, oh my God, that's it. That's exactly what I've been feeling. And I felt relieved for a name to be put to it, because I'm like, maybe I'm out of my mind. Like, what's going on here? I feel tired, but I just could not put a name to it. And just putting a name to it felt healing for me.
Yes, yes, for sure. And it's interesting that you talk about the analogy of like, we just got to put our bags at the door and be there for our clients. And this
Mhm.
reminds me of just generational patterns that have been going on, especially with women. A lot of women in this profession where we've just had to suck it up and do what we
Yeah.
need to do, don't complain about it. You just got to suck it up and figure it out. And I
Yep.
love the shift in the culture, in our work, in our field, in society, where there are people like you and I who are talking about rest and how to actually bring your nervous system down so that you're not constantly just on edge and feeling stressed out. But I
Yeah.
can't help but think that people a lot of people in the helping profession probably grew up like this, where you're having to help out with your family. Maybe you started work young, you had to handle your responsibilities. It didn't matter how you felt about it. It didn't matter if you were sick, if you were well, if you were happy, if you were sad. You still had to do things.
Absolutely. During a workshop a couple weeks ago, we had an interesting conversation about that, because there was a mixture of generations in the room. We had some boomers in there, we had millennials, and we had Gen X. We didn't have any Gen Zers in there. And everybody was just talking about their different experiences and their approaches and their beliefs and the messages they received. And obviously, Gen X and millennials, some millennials are like, oh, well, there was no self-care, or how do you feel about that today? Or, a couple of us joked, if you said, oh, I think I'm depressed, you better depress those dishes. So there was, like you said, there was no focus on your feelings, or tuning in. It's like, well, what's wrong with you? Get over it. Or how are you sad? You're so ungrateful. You have everything. So the focus is on, if everything looks good externally, then why are you sad, or why are you having a hard time? You come off as being ungrateful. You need to suck it up, figure it out, and figure out a way to be grateful, because you have way too much to be grateful for. And I remember my grandmother, Lord rest her soul, we had a great relationship. When I told her, I think it was either during grad school, there was a period I was just doing a lot. I was like, I'm so exhausted. And she was like, honey, women been doing this for the beginning of time. I did it. I had 2 babies, a husband, and I still had to work. And then we had the business. That's what they do. They don't want to hear your experiences. They're going to trade war stories with you and one up you. So I am grateful that we're able to create space for these conversations so that people can show up more authentically. Because if we talk about, like a depression, that's how we help people heal from it, by being able to have these conversations so that people don't feel so isolated and gaslit.
Yes, yes, for sure. I'm wondering, in your experience and expertise, if we're experiencing compassion fatigue, how does this impact our relationships with our family, our friends, and our client and those around us?
Yeah, they all feel it. It So when we think about compassion fatigue, usually one of the first symptoms that we think about is it making us tired. But not only does compassion fatigue make us tired, it makes us unreachable. People walk on eggshells around you because it's an energy. They feel it, they see it, and they don't want to bother you. And you're not fun to be around. And if you do happen to go to an event, you're just, again, you're not fun to be around. You're exhausted, you're irritable, you're probably cynical at this point, or you find yourself missing important events. Your family and your loved ones and your friends, they're inviting you to things and you just don't have the energy, or you just don't want to go. You don't want to be around people. And they start to experience the effects of that. And then they start picking up the pieces. So because you don't have the energy or the time to do the things that need to be done or that they relied on you to do, now somebody, if you're stepping back, somebody else has to step up. So if they're stepping up, picking up all the slack, it's not long before they experience burnout. So it becomes a ripple effect.
Yes, yes. And I've learned that it's a really hard professional skill to master, the art of self-awareness and of self-care.
Yes. Yeah.
To be able to acknowledge, like, okay, Charisse is literally talking about me right now. So
Yeah.
now that we have
Yeah.
this awareness, like, what do we do about it? What are,
Good
like, what
question.
what do you do?
There are a lot of things that you can do, but I think the most important thing, because there are so many coping strategies that we can do. We know regulating our nervous systems. We talk about that. We want to, because we're constantly in a state of just reactivity. So we are charged with how do we activate the relaxation part of our nervous system, especially women who are over 40. I'm in my mid 40s. So you know what comes along with that. There's a whole nother level of stress and hormonal, and then working in this profession. So it is imperative that you prioritize recovery. So recovery in between your sessions, recovery at the end of your day. And is it work? It's like, oh my gosh, she's assigning me homework, one more thing to do. Absolutely, it is work. And it takes being intentional about it. And that's why I said building in that self-compassion, because you are not going to undo this overnight. And what does recovery look like? Recovery is, there are so many things that you can do for recovery, but the most important thing about recovery is being intentional about it. So for starters, in between all your busy day, all of those sessions that you have, all of those meetings, I know you're important, you have so many things to do. Even if in between each session you take a minute to just not respond to an email, not make another phone call, scroll through social media, but to just be still if it's taking some deep breaths, rocking back and forth, giving your brain a chance to rest and reset. Just like we do our phones. When our phones, we'll run it down to 5% when it's on red and then it starts fading because it's about to die. We will push that to down to the last drop. We do that to ourselves. So we don't want to wait until we're on empty. We want to be intentional whenever we can about just resetting and recharging and recovering and just doing things to soothe you. If that's taking a deep breath, if that's listening to some music, if that's doing sensory things to ground you, but things that feel good to your body, your mind, and your spirit.
Yes, I found that being intentional is a really big piece for me and the clients that I work with too, because people say, oh, well, I will self care and relax when I go on vacation, once or twice a year. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking,
Oof.
no, because for me, I'm doing this every single day throughout the
Yeah,
day. Like,
absolutely.
how can I relax and reset myself? Because throughout the day, we are constantly exposed to stressors, traumatic events, traumatic information, experiences. And so once our brains register the stress and the trauma, it releases chemicals into our body. And those chemicals are there until we're processing them, which is
Yep.
why we feel heavy and just weighted down. And so for me, it's like, all right, I know this. What am I going to do about it? And so it's
Mm-hmm.
even as simple as, okay, I'm going to watch a movie, but then I find myself scrolling and I'm like, no, scrolling is overstimulating and that's not relaxing. Put the phone
It
down,
is.
Catherine. Or even in the morning, I'm like, all right, I got my coffee. I'm going to sit on my couch and relax. And then I get distracted. It's always my phone. Then I get distracted. I'm like, Catherine, stop it. We have 5 minutes to do nothing and enjoy a mindful cup of coffee, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
it's so much work.
Yeah, and if you notice, I even noticed on some of those, we have 100,000 apps now that we can watch, whether it's on your TV or your phone. Sometimes for commercials, they'll have like mindful moments. Use this moment to just listen to the water. And I'm like, look at that. They're trying to help us to even be mindful when we're watching TV. So your show goes off for a minute on a commercial break because they got to pay the bills, and instead of like scrolling on your phone, you can actually look at the screen at something relaxing and be mindful. Like that's a way of recovery. But again, when we are conditioned to, as soon as we get a break, pick up our phone and start scrolling, it's hard to break those patterns. It is. That's why we got to give ourselves grace.
Yes, yes, for sure. It's hard, but not impossible. And it's really
Right.
about rewiring our brains at this
Yes.
point
Yep.
and our
Yep.
belief system too, because a lot of times
Yeah.
women will come to me or people in general will say, I just feel guilty about doing self-care. And that
Yeah.
is an internal belief that we really have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's an ingrained belief. It's almost generational. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because when I was reflecting, even just this year, recently, I thought, why is this so hard for me? Because I know what I'm supposed to do. Why is this so hard? And I realized it's because I never saw anyone do it before. I never,
That part. That
gr-
part. Yep. That
growing
part.
up,
Yep.
the
That
women in
that
my life, they'd worked themselves to the bone. They were alcoholics and they were not coping well.
Yep, same. Like all the women in my life, that was the message. You got to work. From my mom, from my dad, from everybody. You no matter what's going on, you got to work. There was no sleeping in on weekends. I remember being woken up out of my sleep to do the dishes. And now I have this almost like I'm anal about dishes in the sink. So we all got our own stuff.
Yes, yes, for sure. Well, we
Yeah.
are almost done, but I do want to hear about the swag awards. Are you still
Yes.
doing this? Are they still going on? What's going on with that?
Yes, yes. So the SWAG Awards, Social Worker Appreciation of Greatness Awards. So this year, well, going into this year, we'll be celebrating the sixth annual award ceremony. So we're super excited about that. We do it every month in March because March is National Social Work Month. So we love themes and we want to get everybody excited about it. So right now, we are honoring up to 9 social workers, 7 just in the field of social work, and in 2 specialty. One is for social work entrepreneur, and one is a lifetime achievement award. A social worker who has at least 30 years of experience and has obviously contributed enormously to the field. And we want to expand. We want to expand beyond Pittsburgh, but obviously, there has to be a need. So that's why I was so excited about connecting with you and getting on your show and just reaching more social workers, because we are doing a small expansion across the state of Pennsylvania for this March, for March of 2026. So we'll see how that goes, and then we're happy to continue to expand it. Last year we had our biggest crowd. We had, I believe, between 215 and 220 guests. So it was great. The energy, the vibe, like everything was perfect. So I'm just looking forward to this year.
That's amazing. So you need to be, in order to qualify to be
Good
nominated,
question.
you need to be in
Good
the state
question.
of Pennsylvania. And what do we fill out an application for ourselves? Do we nominate someone else? Do we be like, hey, Sharice, like, give me an application, put me in there? What
Good
do you do?
question. Thanks for asking me that. So we do, to keep the integrity, because we have our code of ethics in social work. To keep the integrity of it, we do have a nominations process. We have a SWAG committee, and we have committee members who are on the selections committee, and we created this rubric. So there's a scale that they use to just rate all of the nominations for the integrity of it, to be fair. And we have a call for nominations that goes out the 1st of September every year. We keep it open from like September 1st to the first week in October. We do an email blast. We put it on social media. We do as much advertising for it as we can. And in order to qualify right now, state of Pennsylvania, and this is about title protection too. So this is not for somebody who is just doing social work, because there are a lot of people who do social work and we appreciate them, but this is for people who actually have the credentials of social worker. So BSW, MSW, LS, LCS, DSW, and you must have at least 3 years experience in the field. You can nominate yourself, but most people get somebody to nominate them, or somebody just nominates them. And we even, on our swag, so you can follow us on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, at the Swag Awards. We even have a frequently asked questions page on our website about the nominations process. We give an example of what makes a good nomination, because sometimes I know the people, I know the nominations that come through, but I allow my committee to handle that. And I'm thinking, like, wow, I know all the work that this person does. Like, they're phenomenal, but that's not reflected in a nomination. So it's more so about show, don't just tell. And so just giving people an example, because you just hate to see that someone that is doing great work. I think all social workers do great work, but it's just not reflected in that nomination.
Right, yes. And we tend to be very humble with ourselves when we talk
Yes.
about ourselves, which is not,
Yes.
it does not do us justice.
It does not. It's not.
I'm all about factual bragging.
Yes, I love that word. We do great at reframing social workers, factual bragging. I like that. But yeah, this is the time to, just show everything that you have contributed to this profession, all of the people that you have impacted, and how the work has shaped you. And there were a couple of social workers who were just like, they did not feel good about accepting the award. They're like, oh, I don't do it for this. This is wonderful. Please, like, give it to somebody else. And it just speaks to,
Oh,
yeah, this, just just this profession. We know we don't get into this work for the accolades and the income. Even though I don't like that statement. I'm in it for the outcome. I'm not in it for the income. I'm in it for the outcome. Why can't we do both? It doesn't have to be
Exactly.
either or, because we're helping getting people connected to all of these resources, and we have bills and families too.
Yes, yes, for sure. Like I didn't work this hard to be broke the rest of my life. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes. Agreed.
Well, thank you so much, Sharice. And where can people get in contact with you to, especially to find out when the nomination period is open for SWAG Awards?
Yeah, at the Swag Awards across all the Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. The swagawards.com is our website for me. Sharice Nance across every platform, and sharicenance.com is the best way to get in contact with me in the Swag Awards.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sharice. It's
Thanks for
been
having me.
amazing talking to you today.
You too. Thanks for having me.